These are the moments when firefighters faced flames that roared past every limit, from blazing walls of fire to collapsing buildings and split-second decisions that meant survival or tragedy. Starting off with a brush fire that broke out on a Saturday afternoon near Castaic in northern Los Angeles County, where firefighters suddenly found themselves surrounded by fire. On September 11, 2021, a group of firefighters from the Los Angeles National Forest and the Los Angeles County Fire Department were sent to tackle a brush fire reported 7 miles north of Castaic between Interstate 5 and Old Highway 99, also known as Golden State Highway. The crews and engines positioned ahead were using a direct attack strategy, trying to anchor the bottom of the fire. But the winds at 10 to 15 miles per hour quickly swept the flames through the dry brush, which jumped across the busy freeway and spread over more than half a square mile. As it got closer to the highway, the flames looked like they were shooting up 20 to 40 feet high, curling over the road as the thick brush went up in flames really quickly. The terrain blocked the view as the fire spread north unchecked. Air resources monitored the pinching action of the fire, along with the fire crews on Interstate 5. But as they attempted to leave, a bottleneck appeared, cutting off their escape route.
Watch the left!
The two flight crews, each consisting of about 11 members, had been flown in by helicopters and were on foot after being dropped off. The crew that was further away from the worst of the entrapment managed to hop into LA County engines and get out. Meanwhile, the other crew stuck closer to the raging flames and still on foot was in serious trouble. At that moment, engine boss Tom Guzman decided to load everyone into the 2 U.S. Forest Service engines that were packed and ready to go. Each engine usually had 5 firefighters, but they managed to fit in the 11-member flight crew along with 2 extra people. 7 of the crew piled into one engine, while the other took in 4 crew members and 2 firefighters who happened to be nearby. They struggled a bit to get the doors closed. In total, there were 23 people crammed into the 2 engines, which only had seats for 5 each. The last person got in through the driver's door and ended up lying across several people in the front seat, while the driver figured out how to keep steering through the smoke, dodging parked or slow fire trucks on the 2-lane highway, all while blasting the air horn. A firefighter from the U.S. Forest Service and another from LA County suffered second-degree burns. They were both treated by paramedics on scene, then taken to the hospital's emergency room, moved to a burn unit, and eventually sent home. By the next morning, firefighters managed to stop the spread of the root fire at 454 acres, thanks to all the hard work on the ground and support from numerous aircraft. Our next video takes us to Oregon, where a new wildfire was burning and growing rapidly undetected about 15 miles northwest of Lakeview. By September 2021, Lakeview, Oregon really needed a break. That summer was a tough one, with wildfire after wildfire hitting the area. It all started with a lightning strike in the Fremont-Winema National Forest that kicked off the bootleg fire, which ended up burning over 413,000 acres. Then there were a bunch of other fires like the log fire or the Patton Meadow fire. They may have been smaller, but still caused a ton of damage, filling the Lakeview area with smoke and wiping out thousands of acres of forest. After dealing with wildfires all summer, firefighters were probably feeling relieved, enjoying their Labor Day weekend. But soon enough, everything was about to change again. The Cougar Peak fire in the Fremont-Winema National Forest was first discovered in the afternoon on September 7, 2021. By the next night, it had grown to almost 20,000 acres, according to the Lakeview Ranger District of the U.S. Forest Service. The firefighters were up against a few tough challenges like strong winds, dry plants, and steep hills. These factors made the fire spread super quickly, way faster than the crews could keep up with. The crew launched an aggressive initial attack, using hand tools to create fire breaks, cutting vegetation, and digging trenches to stop the fire's spread. The firefighters had to back off because the strong winds were blowing embers across the road and starting a bunch of spot fires. If those fires got out of hand, it could have messed up the crew's escape route. The whole area was filled with thick smoke, so they decided to call it a night and tackle the fire again in the morning. The next day, the crew focused on reinforcing the containment lines in the southern area by digging trenches and clearing out trees. They also burned along the dozer closer line and used existing roads to help shore up and secure the south edge of the fire. They had to move fast in case the wind picked up speed and pushed the blaze towards them. But extreme winds proved to be challenging for the firefighters. The fire had spread and crossed into other areas as well. They continued to work the southern edge of the fire throughout the day, working on establishing an anchor point. In the early part of the day, air teams were helping the ground crews by dropping water from helicopters and using single-engine air tankers to lay down some retardant, but the smoke ended up grounding the aircraft in the afternoon. The team kept pushing to set up containment lines to try to stop the spread as much as they could.
Yeah. Heads up on heat! Back it out! Get out!
The containment lines seemed to be holding up fine as the wildfire burned around the crew. Realizing they had a moment, the crew rushed to create more lines, digging into the soil with determination and tossing aside dried branches and twigs to keep the flames at bay.
Watch the wind shift.
Firefighters were focused on making efforts to keep ahead of the fire to curb it and provide property protection. However, as the wind picked up speed, it created a smoke vortex and sent the fire right toward them. With the wind and dry trees making things worse, the wildfire got really out of control, and soon the place was full of smoke. The crew figured it was time to step back and come up with a new plan to attack the fire, since things could have turned really bad at any moment.
Yep, we're not seeing any improvement in the turbulence up here. We're going to go ahead and return to Lakeview.
Up next, we have a Mayday, where a firefighter fell through the floor of a burning house. In 2013, firefighters were alerted of a house fire early in the morning in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. When the first unit arrived on the scene, the 5-person crew found a 2-story house lit up in flames. Thankfully, the homeowner said everyone had made it out safely and was accounted for. The good news was that the fire seemed to be mostly contained on the left side of the house, giving the team a chance to tackle it head-on and put it out.
Good job.
As the firefighters pushed through the door, they found the main room and hallway in pretty good shape, way better than they had thought. They checked the basement next, only to discover it too had escaped the flames. It became obvious that the real problem was happening above them, the fire taking hold on the second floor. The crew kicked things off by spraying down the fire on the staircase to make way for them to go upstairs. At this point, there were close to 6 crew members inside the house, standing on the hose line. Finally, when the flames above the stairs died down a little, the firefighters began to move forward into the thick smoke and fire. As they pressed onward, the firefighters tapped on the walls and floor, trying to catch any sounds that might hint at damage. But now they had a new issue. Flames were now curling behind them, surrounding them on that cramped staircase.
Hey, come on, turn around, get behind us. Behind us. Up top.
The scene was intense as the firefighters made their way up the narrow staircase, fire hose in hand. Visibility was low as smoke filled up the area, with embers falling all around them. The crew was clearly feeling the heat of a tough situation, but they kept pushing to douse the flames.
Turn right! Right up there, right in that hole!
During the fire attack, the firefighter on the nozzle suddenly fell through the floor. The team quickly shouted Mayday, scrambling to save him.
Get down! Good! Mayday!
The backup man jumped in and helped get the firefighter who had fallen out of the house with help from the crew. Emergency services were quick to step in, and he was soon released from the local hospital. Luckily, he only had a few minor burns on his legs. The next team of firefighters was caught off guard when the roof caved in on them while they were battling a fire in the attic. On July 5, 2018, the North Las Vegas Fire Department jumped into action for a house fire at a private residence. The one-story home had its attic on fire, and the firefighters were on the scene, ready to tackle the blaze. Their strategy was to hit it from underneath in the garage before making their way inside the house.
Command from fire attack. Go ahead, fire attack. This appears to be an attic fire. We're going to hit it from underneath in the garage first before making entry into the home.
2 fire engines were stationed nearby as the crew worked to extinguish the fire. They had opened a small section of the ceiling and were using a hose line to knock the fire down.
55 hand jack and a 5-inch that you help out with water supply. Copy that.
While using the fire hose, the crew noticed the ceiling was starting to bend, and they also heard some wood cracking. It looked like the wooden roof trusses holding up the ceiling could not support the weight of the attic floor.
We have heavy fire in the attic space. We're hitting it from underneath right now.
When the ceiling began to sag, the crew realized that they were in a tight spot, and they made a quick getaway just in time. A moment later, the roof crashed down right on the open garage door, landing squarely on the truck parked inside. When the dust settled, there was about 3 to 4 feet of empty space left on the floor.
Yeah, copy that. Right, truck 43, can you secure garage doors for me? Trucks arrived. Do you want us to set up for defensive operations?
The warning signs of a collapse were pretty clear. There was a deflection, some bowing, gypsum was falling, and lightweight structures were getting hit hard by the fire.